No Dolby Atmos, no HDMI, no voice assistance, and a price of £279. Is this new Sonos soundbar right for you, or are there just one too many compromises? Let's find out. Now, you guys know I'm always honest in our videos. I'm not going to say a new product is great when actually it's not. And after looking at the spec sheet, I was getting ready to have to make quite a difficult video for you. But the more I've been thinking about it, testing it out, unraveling it, and talking about it in the office, the more I can see it making sense for specific people in certain situations. And I think I can now help you work out whether that might be you or not. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, in case you need a little recap, the Sonos Ray is now the most affordable route into the Sonos ecosystem for TV audio, and it joins the Beam and the Arc in Sonos's lineup of 3 soundbars. You can pick one up for £279. I will put a link in the description that will take you to the product page, and a QR code should be round about here. Now, the Ray has clearly been designed for those who have a specific requirement in mind or have a smaller space where they want to enhance their TV audio as well as have a wireless speaker for music. Now, because a large percentage of soundbar buyers actually shop under the £300 price mark, Sonos have clearly decided to add an option to their soundbar lineup that fits in this category while still offering their premium brand, where previously the Sonos Beam at $449 was your best option. Now, there are a number of caveats to that, which I will definitely be jumping into a little bit later on. Before we do, I want to just take a closer look at the design of the Sonos Ray. Now, you can pick one up in a color choice of black or white, the same as most of the other Sonos products. And firstly, you'll notice that actually the Ray looks very similar to the Beam in terms of the materials. They both use this sort of polycarbonate material with a perforated grille, which is great because, as with all Sonos products, their design ages really well, I think. Size-wise, it's 100mm shorter than the Beam, but it shares almost the same height and depth, so at a glance, they don't look too different. But as a result of that smaller width, you could get away with using this with a 32-inch TV and above. You've still got the same touch control layout that you find on the other Sonos soundbars in the range for play, pause, volume controls, skip track, previous track, but you'll notice that there's no microphone symbol because there's no voice control built in like you find on the Beam or the Arc. Although you can use a separate Google Home or Amazon Echo device to get music playing out of your Ray with your voice. That does also unfortunately mean you can't take advantage of Sonos's own voice control service. That can only be done on the Beam and the Arc soundbars. But for those of you who are maybe concerned about voice control and its privacy, this is going to be the safest way because quite simply there's no microphones in there to start with. On the back of the Ray, you've got your power, you've got your Ethernet port, and interestingly, only an optical connection for the TV. So more on that later. Now guys, a really important point here is that the IR sensor on the front of the Ray will receive volume controls from your existing TV remote as there is no remote supplied. Now, as there's no HDMI support, that does mean that there's no CEC functionality, but you can still pair your remote with the Ray as the IR receiver on the Ray works really well. Taking a look under the hood, you get 4 Class D amplifiers that are powering 2 tweeters for vocals and high frequencies, and then 2 high-efficiency mid-woofers for your mid-range and bass. You've also got this bass reflex system, which is a proprietary low-velocity port design, and all this means is that it's going to minimize distortion and it's going to round out those low-end frequencies. There's no dedicated center channel, so the soundbar alone is a 2-channel soundbar, which can be expanded up to 4.1 if you add a pair of Sonos speakers at the back and a subwoofer. On the Ray, all of the drivers are front-facing. There's no angled drivers or upward-firing drivers, so this is ideal for those looking to place the soundbar within a TV stand, a media unit, or perhaps within a cavity in the wall where there's not much clearance either side, because then you're not defeating the object of having those upwards and sideways firing drivers. For those people that have never had Sonos before, I'd really like to quickly cover setup and control. So Sonos have made the setup as simple as it can possibly be. You simply just plug the Ray into mains power, feed your TV with the optical cable which is supplied in the box, and then download the Sonos app and follow the on-screen instructions. You can't really go wrong with it. In terms of controlling the Sonos Ray, you've got plenty of choice. So you've got Spotify Connect, AirPlay 2 for any Apple device users, but also hundreds of services built into the Sonos app like Amazon Music, Tidal, Deezer, Apple Music, TuneIn Radio. There's a long list of what it supports, and that is growing all of the time. Once it's all set up, the beauty of it is that it gets better over time with free software updates, and this can often add quite a bit of value to the customer, like TruePlay tuning, where you can acoustically optimize the soundbar for the room and the environment that it has been placed in, although you will need an Apple device for that. So how does the new Sonos Ray soundbar sound then? Well, we've spent loads of hours now watching different content on the Ray, from movies to TV shows to music and podcasts, and I think that's given us a pretty good idea of its pros and cons. But before I share my thoughts, I'm just going to share some snippets of music and a movie trailer for you to hear for yourself. Now, a quick disclaimer that this won't sound quite as good as it does in our studio when it's playing through YouTube and, of course, the device you're watching me on, but hopefully it'll give you a good flavour.
Where do we start?
Here we go again, huh?
Hello, girl, kick your ass.
Starting off then with where it excels, and that is 100% in the vocals. Now, a number one concern for budget-friendly soundbars is that although they might boost the volume of your audio, the vocals can sometimes get a bit lost in the content. After all, the vocals are the thing that keep you attached to the storyline, and although it's nice to have power in the mid-range and the bass, you've got to know what's going on, right? Now, I didn't miss a word that was spoken in the content that we tested out, and the vocals are surprisingly not far off those of the Sonos Beam and the Arc. So if you watch a lot of dialogue-heavy content, this will be a massive advantage for you. And this was before I'd even tried speech enhancement. So you can enable that in the Sonos app, and it will emphasize the vocals and dialogue even more if you need it. The mid-range and the treble are also really impressive. It was really easy to listen to, if you know what I mean. There's no harshness, there's none of that distortion at higher volumes. Now, in our testing, we did find that it does clip the bass a little bit to protect the drivers when you're listening at those higher volumes, but in reality, that's not going to be the volume that you're listening at very often, if at all. All in all, I'm really impressed with the soundstage projection and the detail that the Ray offers. Everything is there, you don't really miss any of the details. Now, bass-wise, it was okay, but we weren't blown away, but it was more than adequate and it didn't take away from the performance. However, as with all Sonos soundbars, you do have the option to add a separate subwoofer, and as this is a compact soundbar which needs to retain quite a slim aesthetic, you can't really expect huge levels of bass. And ultimately, if you want that chest-thumping bass, that's the job of a dedicated subwoofer anyway. However, I would be a little bit cautious about adding the Sonos Sub Gen 3 to the Ray because it does tend to be just a little bit overpowering, and at an added cost of £749, it kind of feels like you're defeating the whole object of the Ray with that setup. To be honest, this Sonos Ray is just calling out for a smaller bass option from Sonos. Now, there are rumours all over the internet about a supposed Sub Mini, which would be amazing. Now, if you're the sort of person who has a large TV and you like to sit down and have a true-to-life cinematic experience with things like Dolby Atmos, then I would either look towards upgrading to the Beam or the Arc. Now, if you do want a full comparison and an overview of all the Sonos soundbars, I recommend you watch our Sonos soundbar comparison video, which should be up here, and I'll also put a link to that in the description for you below. You might also be considering adding rear surrounds to the Ray, such as the Ones or the One SL, and this, of course, adds a new dynamic to your system, where sounds will come from behind you and then bridge the gap between the front of your room to where you sit. So you'll be placed right in the center of the action, and I would say this is probably the next step of upgrading your Ray if you ever wanted to. I also think the Ray will make a great option for gamers, so if you're thinking of using this as part of a gaming setup, it's a great next step up for your TV audio. The same would also apply to PC gamers who can just plug the Ray into their PC's optical port, and you can save space as well, as it would just go directly under the screen instead of taking up space either side of your monitor, and you can still benefit from immersive sound. I actually also want to quickly talk about how the Sonos Ray compares with the Sonos One. Why? Well, I know it's a highly rated speaker and one that a lot of you have in your homes. So musically, why would I compare this to the Ray? Well, for music alone, the Ray offers a better performance, the vocals are more defined, and the separation in the tracks is of a higher standard, resulting in a generally better listening experience overall. Now, the reason that I mention this is that I have a particular situation where I'm looking to add music to a secondary room in my home. So for me now, is the Ray worth £100 more to me for music only? I'd say probably not, but I would happily pay a £50 premium over the Sonos One SL. But the caveat to that is that in that room, I also have a TV. So for me to have a better listening experience than the Sonos One and have TV connectivity, I feel like my £279 is working harder for me and it's getting me better value for money. But I can't say I'm going to be replacing my Beam in my living room with the Ray anytime soon. Personally, for me and my requirements for that room, the Beam ticks the boxes. So the biggest thing that I would say about the Ray is context and what are your needs from a soundbar? Which brings me on nicely to, would I recommend the Sonos Ray for you? Firstly, guys, this product is not going to be for everyone. When you look at the specification of the Ray, at first glance, it doesn't tick all of the boxes that you might look for in a new soundbar in 2022, like Dolby Atmos, HDMI, voice control, that sort of thing. But you have to ask yourself, why do you want to tick those boxes? Are you looking for Atmos because you're always watching the latest and greatest films and TV shows and you're really after that full immersion when you're watching your content? If not, you might not actually need it in the first place. And if you're the kind of person that just wants to upgrade your TV audio with better vocals, with more clarity and detail, plus a great speaker for music that fits right into a wider system that can be grouped with your whole home, then the Ray might actually be for you and save you some money over, say, the Sonos Beam. On the flip side, if you do want to tick those boxes, there's plenty of other options out there that will be right for you. And yes, you can get a soundbar with more features for the same money, but I think the overall package that the Ray offers makes it a great option and one to consider in that sub £300 soundbar market. So make sure you get in the comments, guys, and let us know your thoughts on the new Sonos Ray. Can you see a place for it in your home? Don't forget, guys, we do offer an extended 6-year warranty on all Sonos products, as well as a 30-day extended returns policy. So if it's not right for you, you can always send it back. Our team are always here to help, so get in touch for more personal recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.